This is called a side seam pocket. Runs along the side seam of the garment, and as you can see, it's very clean because the side seam is actually on the inside. It's very popular, and we're going to show you how to do it. First step is to start at the waist and stitch the pocket sections to the front and back of the garment. So I want you to come down about 1/4 inch and then back tack back to the waist and then down. Now this line that we're stitching on is actually 1/2 inch. Our seam allowance along the side seam is really 5/8. But what this is doing is giving us 1/8 where the pocket will be pushed in toward the inside of the garment, so you won't see this seam on the outside of the garment. So stitch this straight down to the end and back tack at the bottom. You need to do this on the other piece as well. So you have 2 pieces. Thread came unthreaded. Whoops. Continue with the other side. Don't forget to back tack at the top and the bottom of this piece that you're stitching, or your pocket will fall apart. Okay. Once you have both pockets stitched on to the front and back, you need to press them and you need to press both of the seams toward the pocket edge. So it's clean. Okay, now you're ready for the next step, which is laying one pocket over the other, and we're going to stitch around the edge of the pocket as well as down from the waist to the notch at the 5/8 mark, 5/8 wide seam allowance, and then resume the stitching once again at our notch at 5/8 down the side of our garment. So I should pin this with a couple of pins. Make sure when you pin this together that you're matching your seam allowance at the top. Okay, but you're actually going to stitch 1/8 away from this line down to your notch. Okay, because that is your actual seam allowance right there at 5/8. So pin your pockets back together all the way around. Down the side. Okay, so we're going to start first with stitching from the waist down to our notch and back tack top and bottom. So we'll take a few stitches and then back. You're 1/8 away from your previous seam there. Back tack. Okay, that is the waist to the pocket opening. Here we go. Now at the notch, 1/8 inch away from our previous stitching, we are continuing back tack and then continue down our 5/8 seam down the rest of the garment. Now we're showing you this pocket on a skirt, but it can also be applied to a pant as well, or a coat or a jacket. So it's the same process. So you have stitching down from the waist down to the notch, and then you don't stitch in this area because you have to get your hand in the pocket. Then you start again at the notch at the bottom of the pocket opening, back tack, and stitch down to the bottom. Now the last thing we need to do in the area of stitching is stitch around the outer edge of our pocket. Okay, and we also need to get in here to stitch the pocket all the way. So you have to fold this seam back a little bit so you can get inside there. Okay, so we're going to stitch this at our 5/8 all the way around. Start at the top and back tack, and then follow it all the way around. Now, as you're coming up to the side seam, make sure that you have these seam allowances and you're moving them away so you don't catch them underneath. And if you want to, you can actually just take a pin and pin them back so you don't catch them underneath on the inside of your pocket. Okay. Just come around the corner and stitch back to that stitching line without going through it, because you'll go through into the front of the pocket. So back tack a little right there. That's actually the bottom of your pocket. And then you're almost done. Take out your pins. And the last thing you need to do is fold your pocket toward the front of your garment. We're going to snip the seam allowance along the side so we can press that open down the side of the garment. And what you need to do is tack the pocket up along the waist. And this is very important to do, especially if you're going to be putting a facing or a waistband in, which you're going to be doing something up there, because you don't want this pocket to flap around and end up in the wrong place. So take your pocket, fold it flat along the top, and stitch it across. Now you have a side seam pocket, clean, and you can see how the seam edge is pushed on the inside, so when it's closed you don't see any of that. This part, so that way it looks really nice. Take your pocket, and after we snipped that seam open, press the seam open down the side, but keep the seam along the pocket pushed toward the pocket. And then you can see on the outside how nice that pocket looks. Beautiful.